Welcome to the Tour Junkies Golf Show. It is August 29th on the Better Sports Network. We are going to talk a lot about Ryder Cup today because the Ryder Cup captain's picks were announced earlier this morning. Captain Zach Johnson got into it. We'll get into that here in just a second. We've got a guest, Taylor Zarzour, coming on this week. Pumped to have him on, talk a lot of Ryder Cup, maybe a little bit of college football.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Pat, we got to recap the Tour Championship, I guess. Victor Hovland wins the BMW last week, now wins the Tour Championship, won, I think, $21 million over those 2 weeks. Can you imagine being 25 years old? Okay. Isn't that how old he is? I think he's 25.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
20, whatever, mid-20s. You just made $21 million on top of the millions he's already made. No wife, no kids. Like, what would you do? You wake up on your day off. What do you even do?
Where does he live?
He still lives in Stillwater. I saw an interview with him today. He was going to play golf. He was on the Pat McAfee show today. He's playing golf in Stillwater with his buddies.
I mean, there's not much
you spend money on in
I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like, because I could wake up with that kind of money and scroll through some boats that I may want to buy, or, I don't know. Maybe you go directly to looking at some trips. You call your travel agent and you're like, I want to go to a place that's $10,000 a night. I don't know.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. I mean, he did say he was going to spend a lot of his time off in the fall in Norway. He's obviously going to be preparing to play the Ryder Cup in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to go home to Norway, see his friends, see his family. That'll be cool. But I don't know. I was just sitting there watching him do that Pat McAfee interview, and he was talking about the 21 mil. I'm like, if I just woke up tomorrow and I was a 24-year-old single, no responsibilities, Victor Hovland with all this money, what would I do?
Maybe he'll get a new driver or something. Some new irons.
What?
I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure they get those for free. But look, yeah. I mean, it's been a great year for him. I mean, it's obviously the next step now for him is winning a major, but this is it's been huge. And Victor's I think he's really kind of taken the next steps to being one of the premier golfers in the world. A lot of it came down to, I mean, the scrambling was always his biggest problem, and that really improved a lot this past year. And he's just he's fun to watch. He's always happy out there. He has a good attitude. Like, I think big things are ahead for him, and it's good to see. I've always been a Victor Hovland fan.
He's super fun to watch. I couldn't agree more there. He talked about on the Pat McAfee show this morning. He talked about how, or this afternoon, how his stuff with Eduardo Molinari, Francesco's brother, who's gotten into the stats and data analytics side of things, has kind of helped him shape how he manages the golf course and how he attacks, how he does. And it led me to think, I wonder if some of the scrambling improvement is, I'm sure there's a lot of it that is just technique and improved technique and approach. But I also wonder if, because he's got this newfound deal where he's got Eduardo Molinari helping him map out his strategy on the golf course. I wonder if he's missing in better spots, right? If you're missing in bad spots from approach, you're chipping from tougher locations. It's harder to get up and down, harder to gain strokes around the green. I'm sure that's probably also got something to do with it. I also just can't even imagine Victor Hovland missing greens anyway, with how good he hits it and how well he's played. He's truly a top player in the world for sure. I would be shocked to see him walk away if this continues without a major next year. He came close this year.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think you're right. I think that a lot of the analytics, a lot of these golfers are doing this these days. We've seen a lot of it out there, and it seems to be really working. I mean, when you get to strategically plot your way around a golf course for all 4 rounds, even if, like you're saying, Victor doesn't miss a whole lot of greens, but if he is, at least maybe he's got a better chance to miss it in the right spot. That gives you an easier chip, and whatever he's doing, it's working. So, and it was a fantastic year.
Well, of course, a fantastic year. He was happy about it, but our friends calling the broadcast from Norway, who we played last week and had a trip out of watching these guys. The PGA Tour also released their call this week. I would imagine it was a little less climactic given how bad he was beating everybody. I mean, I think it got down to 3 strokes over Xander at some point, but it was definitely kind of an ass whooping from Victor for most of the Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So let's roll that and take a look at the call this week.
Borti der. Kom igjen da! Det par 50 det! Det par smak på den, du, Sander! Jeg kjenner jeg blir nervøs. Du kjente kanskje håndflata. Den ikke knust døren nå. Hvorfor ikke?
Han trengte bare en.
Vi klemmer og klemmer ofte I bua, Henrik, og det avgjort, men vi tar jammen en klem her, altså.
En
rolig, nydelig, lekker FedEx Cup-seier, klem.
Grattis til alle.
Se på den da. Ja, det det sykeste. Han går av her og vinner FedEx Cup Tour Championship med 5 slag.
Those guys are electric. Yeah, that's what I keep picturing is like Nance and Trevor Immelman embracing.
I don't think that. Yeah, can you imagine at the Masters?
Yeah,
they'd probably get torn out of the booth.
Obviously,
National.
Yeah, and obviously it doesn't happen because like there's not one American golfer to cheer for, right? There's a bunch of them. So I mean, Norway's got their Norway son, who is Victor Hovland right now. Like he's their guy. So means a lot to that country, I'm sure. And he's a dog, man. He's a total dog. Hard, yeah, I agree with you. Like hard not to like the kid. He's incredibly likable. I bet he probably
Tony.
Suck on it, Rom. Scotty takes the Masters, says Jim Nance. Yeah, he probably, I think he's a weed guy. I think Hovland enjoys himself a little bit of the devil's lettuce, if you know what I mean.
Well, maybe it's just his eyes are that way.
No, I think he's kind of out there in the open. Like maybe there's a really high end, like the Louis Vuitton of weed stores in Stillwater, that he can just go in there and get like this amazing strand of bud over there.
Well, I mean, he could definitely do it with that money. So if that's what you want to spend it on.
So this is the 5th year now that we've had the Tour Championship with this staggered strokes format. I think, isn't it? So obviously Victor won with the staggered strokes, but I think him and Xander tied for.
Yeah, they did. They
tied
with
19 under or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
19 under.
I still, for the life of me, can't think of another solution, but I still don't like this. And also, I started the playoffs in general are just very strange because it all feels forced. 2 of the events were in absolute miserable heat. I mean, Memphis and Atlanta in August, not good. So like Saturday and Sunday at the Tour Championship, guys just looked like they were ready to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
It had been a long year, a long 3-week stretch. They were ready to go. And hot Atlanta was hot. And I'm 2 hours away from it. It was hot here. I don't think you change it up again or change it back or whatever, unless you could completely blow up the whole thing. I don't know if there's another solution, because when I think about the old way, that was still weird because you had like 2 champions kind of. You had scenarios where the winner, it just would have been weird. It did not reward the full season play like they wanted it to. But then you think about like other sports, that's how it goes. Like the playoffs, you kind of start over. It doesn't matter how dominant you were in the regular season. It's kind of everybody's 0-0. So I don't know. Do you have any like eureka thoughts on this? I can't think of anything.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think if the only way you could really completely change it would be to completely blow it up and then have some new concept with how you did it, because I don't actually mind the staggered strokes format compared to where it used to be. And once it gets going, like the first day when you look at the leaderboard and you see somebody's at 10, somebody's at 8, it looks funky. But then once it all starts, everybody's jostling around, it looks a little bit more normal.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it feels like it's maybe the best way, but unless you just got rid of the playoffs and made it something else, so like where the last tournament was only 8 guys or something, and that's all that could win. Or you had some sort of match play format. I don't think match play, though, is as great for TV. Not that matters as much, but, well, I guess it does from their eyes. So I don't
It's gotta
know.
be better than the current. I mean, nobody I don't think very few people watched this weekend. Nobody cared. It's just I think the whole thing, the timing of it too, that after the long season or after like that January through the summer run or January through the open run is so, you know, it's just a lot. And I just don't think guys care enough yet. And you know what else is weird to me? The tour goes all year with and they don't talk about money. They get to East Lake and they talk about money.
Yeah.
Like
A lot.
every year, it's not about the money, it's about the prestige, and it's about playing on the best tour, and it's about winning on courses that Arnie won on and Tiger won on and blah blah blah. And then they get to East Lake and it's like the winner gets $18 million. 10th place gets $1 million. 5th place gets $10 million. Like they're just throwing all the money in your face. And it's just weird. Everything about it just feels forced. It all just feels forced. And it's just, I don't know who likes it other than, I mean, obviously the players and caddies get broke off if they make it there. But
Victor likes it.
But ultimately, though, most of those guys don't want to play. They don't want to play any more golf by the time it gets there. And they damn sure don't want to play it in Atlanta in August. And then the fans just don't care. I mean, we've been doing this. We're about to come up on our ninth year. Like, we see our numbers dip drastically come the playoffs. Like, if people just don't seem to care. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. It's not terrible right now, I guess. If you're a diehard golf fan, it is what it is. But I can't understand. I don't know what to do with it other than blow it up completely, move it to a different time of year, change up the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that'd be the only solution.
So we do have the Ryder Cup to talk about. We're going to get to that. We've got a guest, Taylor Zarzour, coming on, host of SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio and SEC Network. We're going to have him on in the next break here. But the Ryder Cup teams were finalized. The U.S. team. Zach Johnson announced his 6 captains picks today. I think we've got a clip of that announcement. So let's roll that. See who Captain ZJ chose to throw on the team.
A lot of time, a lot of energy has gone into this process. That's probably no secret. I am very confident in these 6, and my confidence comes from the mere fact that I am surrounding myself around great people, specifically my vice captains who have been absolutely amazing. Our analytics team, who they're the nerd herd, but we love them. They give us a lot of great information that we can chew on. And then from there, we came up with what we felt was 6 guys that made these other 6 whole. So without further ado,
That's a key statement.
our 6 gentlemen that will be joining our qualifiers are Mr. Sam Burns, Mr. Ricky Fowler, Mr. Brooks Koepka, Mr. Colin Morikawa, Mr. Jordan Spieth, and Mr. Justin Thomas.
And then awkward. Hey guys. This was the most awkward whole thing. ZJ stops talking. I don't know if the guys knew they were on yet.
I don't even know if they know they're on camera.
And then he's like, "Oh, okay." I'll clap.
Yeah.
Brooks is like, "See, this is why I got out of here. You guys don't know how to run shit." The whole thing, it was kind of awkward. It felt very much like a COVID. I thought it was in COVID again for a second. Everything just with the Zoom and the awkwardness. I will say I was watching it live on Instagram with TJ followers, And I did set the line at like a -220 line that one of the players would start talking with his microphone on mute. But the plus money would have taken it there because nobody did that. Although a lot of the people a lot of the press that were over Zoom, I don't know if they had ever, I don't know if they just completely, like, Men in Black memory blanked what it was like to be on Zoom a couple years ago and ask questions. They were idiots. There are definitely some awkward moments, at least watching digitally.
Yeah, I don't know how you can make that exciting because I guess you're trying to, but then Zach himself is not exactly the most, exciting person to listen to. Maybe you put some of that Chicago Bulls music out there, and have them run out or something. I mean, I don't know what else you do to make it that much, that exciting. The picks are the part that everybody's waiting to see anyway.
Yeah.
And we can talk through that with Taylor. I think these picks are certainly interesting. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was captain, I would probably hire Pat McAfee to come in and like do the announcement for those guys, because we know Pat McAfee can cut a promo real quick, and to have him announce the guys. And plus, like, he led with Sam Burns, who was one of the ones in question. I'm like, come on, it's like you got to say Spieth, Morikawa, Fowler, Brooks, Sam Burns,
and then you get to JT.
And Justin Thomas, like you got to do something, like lean into it a little bit. But no, Zach's going to play it safe. He's going to do what he's going to do. Anyway, the JT and the Sam Burns picks are what are making waves on social media right now, on the internet right now, as those being two questionable picks in some people's minds. And we'll talk about it at length with our next segment and with our guest, Taylor Zarzour. So stay right here on the Better Sports Network. The Tour Junkies Golf Show is coming right back.
Matt Dorich here, live at the Scott Fish Bowl 13 New York City Draft at Tito Murphy's. The first round of the Shake Shack division is underway. If you could believe it, team number one, you're going to love this, Mike Lipchenko selects Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, Miami Dolphins, in the 101. An unbelievable, surprising pick here in the 4th spot. From the game day, Scott the King Engel. How does he start his draft? Not with a Seattle Seahawk, but the Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen will lead Scott Engel's team. He's right here. King, what do you think about Josh Allen to start your team?
I didn't think he was actually going to fall to me. The Tua Tagovailoa pick was off the board. Mike said he was going to pivot, so it was just a matter of who's going to fall to me. I just always think about, okay, who's the top guy on my board, who's going to fall to me. But having Josh Allen at 4 proves that every draft has a different flow, and you never know what's going to happen.
Bobby Cable's here. Tell us about the Scott Fish Bowl charity personally touched your family.
So basically, when I joined the military, when you get called up, you don't necessarily get money right away. It takes 30 days for any money to hit your account. And what I'm telling you is that if it wasn't for people like Scott Fish Bowl and Toys for Tots, my family wouldn't have had a Christmas. So stuff like this, I'll Hulk smash somebody for, because without it, my family would legitimately not have a Christmas because of it.
Scott Fish Bowl and fancycares.org, of course, break the hold. Amazing job for everybody to come out here. And look what we've given ourselves here. A whole Saturday at a New York City bar to ourselves. No family, no job. Some of us working. But really, fantasy football party here with the best people in New York City together. So congratulations to everybody.
Making you money in daily fantasy sports and golf betting. Tour Junkies on Better Sports Network.
We are so close to the NFL season kicking off, which means draft season is unfortunately coming to an end, although I have my big draft this weekend. And if you want to dominate your league, then you got to head over to fantasyalarm.com and dive into the draft guide and cheat sheet over there. I've been digging in it. I've been cramming. The PGA Tour season is long. I don't get a chance to look at this stuff until the last minute. And the Fantasy Alarm cheat sheet and guide has me covered. You can start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's all-pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. All you got to do is go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. Check it out. Pat, you going to be drafting with me this weekend, right?
Yeah, it should be.
We got our big
Yeah.
draft. All right. We could get caught up in talking college football, or not college football. We're going to talk some college football, but NFL football, if we got too deep into that, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk Ryder Cup. And we got our boy Taylor Zarzour on the line. He's traveling, he's driving, so we can't get the video on. You guys you'd be floored by the jawline on this guy. He's just a Greek god, host of SiriusXM, PJ Tour Radio, and SEC Network, and our buddy Taylor Zarzour. What's up, bud?
Yeah, we can go backseat. We're in the Uber right now.
Okay.
So we can go backseat
Whoa.
if you'd like. My friend Tess, who's in charge of all the photography at SiriusXM, took some amazing pictures of Zach Johnson today, and unfortunately, I was in them as well. But yeah, we're about to pull up here at DFW. So yeah, if you guys can grin and bear me going through. Well, I'll wait to go through TSA pre-check until we're done.
Okay. Well, we can tolerate it, dude. And thanks for popping that mug on here, dude. Looking like a Silver Fox snack right now. I tell you that. Taylor, you were in the room for Captain Zach Johnson's press conference. I don't know if you were able to see any of the Zoom awkwardness from where you were, but overall thoughts on the conference on Captain ZJ's, especially the two picks that everybody's talking about. What are your thoughts and takeaways?
I wasn't surprised. Just being around the game and knowing Zach like I know him, and knowing a lot of the players that are on the team, this is what I expected. It's just there's been a lot of scuttlebutt in the last maybe week to 10 days those would be who the people would be. I certainly understand that, there's going to be a few people that look at Keegan Bradley and say the guy's had a great year. He's putted a lot better. He's been in contention quite a bit. He's won 2 tournaments this past season. I know they would look at Lucas Glover and his recent great form and think that he certainly could have been a pick. Cam Young was 8th in the standings, though the standings are a little tricky because he gained so many points last year as opposed. I understand that, you could go with 3, 4, 5 different guys than the people that ultimately Zach Johnson selected. But I think Zach erred on the side of chemistry. I think he erred on the side of, I know if I put Brooks Koepka with anybody on the team, we might go get a point. And he strikes fear into just about everybody he plays against. And for me, he's the best big money player in the game of golf. The higher the stakes, the higher the pressure, the better he is. And then you look at Justin Thomas and what he's done through the years, the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup. Unbeatable. He was the best player in Paris when the rest of his American teammates certainly didn't play so well. So I think that's what Zach erred on. Hunter Mahan was with us today doing some work for us, and Hunter said, yeah, but Justin Thomas isn't the same player he was, when he last year at the President's Cup or 2 years ago in Wisconsin. And that's a compelling response to why or why not to put him on the team. But there's no doubt Zach was looking at past experience and chemistry. That had to I think that factored in more for Zach than current form does.
I feel like too, like you're going to have a little bit of added pressure on JT, or at least he's probably going to have some on himself to play well in this Ryder Cup because of this. But that could be a good thing. My question though is, let's go to Brooks Koepka. We had heard a lot of talk about that they may leave Brooks off the team, especially when he got out of the automatic points. How close do you think it was for him being left off the team, or was it really a non-event at all?
I think that based on the way that Zach answered the question, I don't think it was close at all. I think that he said it. He said he basically made the team automatically. And so to me, that shows you that he was almost a lock to be on this team. And chances are, if Zach in fact said, okay, I'm going to rank my captain's picks, I'm betting you he probably was captain pick number 1 because he was so close to making the team automatically. We're going to gate C, please, sir. There you go. Live show here in the back seat right now. I think the biggest thing, guys, is Zach does not like controversy. He doesn't like distractions. And I'd be interested to hear what both of you say. I love listening to what you guys have to say on, especially what you were saying in the previous segment about the Tour Championship. I mean, I'll ask you both this question. I think it would have been a bigger distraction if Koepka wasn't on the team. If you leave Koepka at home, everybody's going to be saying you left the PGA champion and the guy that finished second in the Masters at home only because he plays on Live. Not because he isn't, because he is. He's one of the best 12 players in America. He's one of the best 12 players in the world. If you don't take him with you on the trip, to me, that would have been a bigger distraction, don't you think?
I agree 100%. And I'll slightly switch it up on you and say, I've been banging the drum for the last month or so for Dustin Johnson for similar reasons, given his Ryder Cup record, given what he did, 2 years ago, Whistling Straits, when he was one of 4 or 5 players ever to win 5 points in a Ryder Cup. He's a team guy. He's a locker room guy. He's a different locker room guy than JT, I think. But I could, if I were the captain, I could see taking DJ over Sam Burns. I will say I started to come around a little bit on JT in the last 48 hours. I don't even know if me and Pat have had a chance to talk about that, because I've done some videos over the last couple of weeks about Justin Thomas kind of being left out and more falling in that camp. But as we got closer to it and I started thinking more about it, I think JT was probably the right call there. He's earned the right to both in his relationships with players, his performance at President's Cups and Ryder Cups in the past, his upside ability, what he did in Paris. Me and Pat were on site there in Paris when he did it. I think he's earned the right to have one of these kind of hall passes, if you will. But DJ was kind of the one that I knew wasn't going to get picked, because he didn't perform near as well as Brooks did, obviously in the majors. But given his record, Burns was the one that kind of surprised me, and it does feel like it all came down to Zach Johnson looking at Scotty Scheffler, who's so tight with Sam Burns, or maybe the other guys in the room. And it just kind of came down to that. I mean, one of the things he said right in that opening statement was he wanted 6 guys who would, I can't remember the exact word he used, but that would group together best with those other 6 or something, however he said it. But that was kind of an indicator to me that we were probably going to get a Sam Burns and not a Keegan, or, even a Dustin Johnson, and dang sure not a Bryson DeChambeau. Did we lose Taylor? Has he been absorbed by Gate C? Concourse C? Technical difficulties. He heard my DJ take and he just hung up, maybe. Maybe that's I don't know, Pat. I mean, I like I said, we hadn't had a chance to talk about the JT thing, and we're kind of bouncing around here, but the more I thought about it, the more I was kind of thinking, JT's in some ways earned the right. I'll tell you what, our friend who we've had on this show before, Will Haskett, had an interesting tweet today. I don't know if you've seen it, but I don't have it in front of me, so I may not get it exactly right. But in 2018, I think it was Sergio was 13th and Stenson was 17th in the European Tour standings. And they were both selected as captain's picks by Thomas Bjorn. That would be the equivalent of taking, Ricky Fowler, which we did, and Kurt Kitayama right now. Okay. Yeah. Now, a lot of people were questioning, especially the Stenson pick. Both of those players obviously had tremendous amount of Ryder Cup experience behind them, but they were taken on the grounds of experience, of locker room, of team chemistry, blah, blah, blah. And they went 6-0-1 that year in Paris. Will Haskett tweeted that out. And so the more I started thinking about the team element of it, and then just JT, like the form that JT has shown, it's not like Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler slump level form, right? Like no. It's not been good, but it's not been as bad and as prolonged as maybe theirs was. I mean, he was starting. I mean, he fought hard at the Wyndham, right? I mean, the field, it was the Wyndham, but I could see, I could start to come around on the JT pick. I was starting to come around on the last few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing. I mean, it still boils down to having a good team. I mean, this is the Ryder Cup team. It is not, it's not a beauty contest to get everybody in there that, you think should or deserves it or whatever. I mean, there is, Zach had a good problem. He had a lot of good guys that he could choose from in those last few spots. And it came down to, having a guy like JT who's got the experience, who's got the relationships with the other guys on the team. I think Keegan would have been a pretty good addition.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of putting them side by side, as far as a team aspect of it, JT makes a little more sense there. It just is what it is. So
the way I was looking at it was like JT is your replacement for Cam Young, because I couldn't agree more with what Taylor Zarzour said. Like Cam Young's, all his points were earned last year.
Yeah,
he
were.
He did not have a good year.
No.
So then it was like, okay, to me it was either Keegan or DJ, and I knew DJ wasn't going to get picked.
Yeah.
But I think Keegan earned it. And I think you could argue Keegan has shown that he's a team guy.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, for sure.
A USA guy, right? Like he's always, I mean, in the one opportunity? Has he played in one Ryder Cup? The one he dominated with Phil?
Yeah.
Like he's taken advantage of the team event that he got in, however long ago that was, a long time ago, maybe 2014. But So I like, and I think Keegan's a guy who's well liked. I mean, he's not best friends with Jordan Spieth, right? But I think he's a well liked guy that nobody would have had a problem with. It just seems, I don't know. I think Keegan would have been the better pick over Sam Burns. I have concerns about Burns. Like, I mean, damn. I mean, if he pairs him with Scotty Scheffler, who just had the best ball striking year ever. All right, we got Taylor Zarzour back. Let's see if we can bring Taylor back on. All right, we got you.
Sorry about that. Yep.
No worries. I don't know what you heard. I don't know what the last thing you heard. What I was talking about DJ. I was talking about my case for DJ.
Yeah, I did hear that, and I could build one too. What he did in Wisconsin was the greatest performance I've ever seen in any Ryder Cup. And no disrespect to Francesco Molinari or Sergio Garcia or Nick Faldo or anyone else through the years. I thought that he was unstoppable. I do wonder. And I certainly had been clamoring for him in recent months too. I do wonder just how much he wanted to be on this team. I think that he sort of is in a new phase of his life where he's playing these live events. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars. And I don't think that he's as connected maybe to the top of the game of golf as he once was. And it's not as much of a passion for him as maybe it once was. And Brooks Koepka made it clear to Zach Johnson it's still very much as a passion of his. So I think that probably factored in. But going back to what you were saying about, Sam Burns being on the team, no doubt. I think that the way that he is friends with Scotty Scheffler, the way that he is teamed with Scotty Scheffler, and the putter that Sam Burns is. Scotty Scheffler's going through this terrible struggle with his putter recently, and you match him with a guy that knows him better than anyone and that's making a lot of putts, I think is probably a factor there in why Sam Burns is going to be on this team. And he was on the team last year at the President's Cup too. I really think that chemistry was probably the biggest factor as to what Zach Johnson decided to do with these captain selections. If I will say two things. First of all, if we were playing a 12-man stroke play tournament, there's no way you can put Justin Thomas on the team right now.
Yeah.
If the Ryder Cup was next week, I think it would have been very hard to justify that. But once you go 4, almost 5 weeks, form, and Zach just told me this. We just did a special that's airing today on SiriusXM, and he just said form was a factor, but it wasn't the biggest factor because it's a month plus later, and while Victor Hovland is absolutely the best player alive at this very moment, is he still going to be the best player alive 3-4 weeks from now? Jon Rahm, the first quarter of 2023 was historically great. He wasn't hot. This is a historic run. Since then, he's really cooled off, and he didn't play well in the playoffs. Is Jon Rahm going to be the same guy in Rome that he was, in the 3 playoff events in the United States? Probably not. So I do understand the thought process, kind of like what you were going back to of how you can justify JT on the team, because this isn't happening for a month.
Yeah. He's going to play the Fortinet too. We know he's committed to that. I guess the biggest question I have, if Scotty and Burns are paired together in alternate shot and Burns sprays one of those tee balls like he's been doing, he's going to have to explain to Scotty what that long grass is just outside of the fairway that Scotty's not seen sometimes.
And by the way, guys, I wouldn't do that. I would put him on best ball. I wouldn't put him on alternate shot. I'd put him on best ball. Let Scotty go hit 18 greens, and Sam can make a couple of bombs, and then all of a sudden maybe you give Scotty some confidence. But for exactly the reasons you just said, I would save Sam Burns for best ball.
Yeah, I hear you.
Let Brian Harmon be the alternate shot man.
There you go. What the other thing I was going to talk to you about is like, so I think people have slept on this European Tour team a little bit. And about 2 months ago, I did an Instagram video. It's still up. I think you can look at it. And I was like, the European team is 2-1. They were plus 200 everywhere. And I was like, this team is really good. And then about 10 days ago, before Victor closed out the BMW, I did another video. They were plus 165. And I was like, this is shortened, but I still think this is a great bet. Today, they're like plus 150. This is after Hovland's won back-to-back. He looks like you just said, looks like world beaters. I think when you look at the top 8 players, like just look at the core 8, I don't know that you can distinguish which team is better out of those top 8. I think the U.S. team has some guys with some question marks that have had some high highs and low lows, that have some holes in the boat. And Europe has a bunch of guys that have just kind of been steady dogs like all year. And I think you're sleeping on Europe at a plus 150 even number. I mean, would you agree with that from a betting standpoint?
I absolutely would. And my old producer, who's your producer, Tony, knows we make picks on my show. Tony used to pick Kevin Streelman every single week for some ridiculous reason. But I have gained some information from your Instagram videos this year about which picks to play. So are you telling me that you're putting cash down on the European team while cheering for the Americans?
So somebody asked me this today in the live chat. I bet it at 2-1. Okay. I bet it again at plus 165. I kind of want to bet it at plus 150 now, but I think if I did that at that point, then I would be Tupac committed. I will not be cheering for Europe. I will 100% be cheering for Team USA.
Look at Pat. Pat's fired up about this.
Because you can't do this. This is like putting money against Georgia. Put money
No.
It's the same thing.
Very different. I've never bet any game that Georgia's played in. I've never done that. I will not do that. But this is a little different. This is golf. Like I'm more of a fan of these guys as individuals. I mean, but damn sure I want to see USA kick ass over in Europe. I mean, me and Pat were there in Paris, and it was the worst 2-day, 3-day golf experience. We just got our brains kicked in the whole time, and it was miserable. So I want to see our guys do it, but I'm just telling you.
Listen, go back to your question. I think it's a fair fight. Hunter Mahan and I were talking about this just a little while ago, and he said 55% of me thinks the American team is going to win. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where I am right now. Here's the thing. So they have the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ranked players in the world. They have 4 of the top 8. They have 7 of the top 15. Usually they have 4 or 5 guys that are just as good as our 4 or 5 guys. They have 7. I mean, Sepp Straka is like the 8th best player on the team, assuming he's on the team. Which, by the way, is another story, an amazing story. A guy that has the thickest Georgia/Alabama accent in the world is going to play for Team Europe. Yes. And if Dewey is carrying a bag for Europe, that is just going to be like head explode. But they are a much deeper team. Like Justin Rose would probably be the 9th guy. They have player 11 and player 12 are probably at a disadvantage for them. But you know what they typically do for Europe? They hide those guys. Those guys may play once before you get to singles. So, I mean, if you're and I don't know what they're thinking in terms of pairing players together, but if they put Matt Fitzpatrick and Rory together and Rahm and Hovland together, I mean, those guys are going to at least average a point between those 2 matches, if not more. I think this is going to be a fair fight. And I think that's crazy to see the Europeans at such underdogs. But I'm with Pat. I'm not betting it.
Has Zach mentioned much about the course itself, like what he's thinking already?
He did.
I mean, what were some things that you've kind of gathered from that?
He thinks, and of course, now remember, as you guys know, going over to Paris, he can't set up the course. Luke Donald is setting up that golf course. But traditionally, the European Ryder Cup captains set up the golf course to prevent bombers from putting it wherever they want and growing up the rough very thick and putting a much bigger premium on ball striking and long iron play. I don't think that Luke Donald can do that because his guys are just as much bombers as our guys are.
Exactly.
You know, so he did say that he thinks that it's somewhat similar to Paris in that it's not a traditional European golf course. He did say this. He didn't necessarily talk specifically about the layout of the course. He didn't say, you know, it favors a right to left player or a left to right player. He actually was asked that by somebody in our audience when we were doing this little special a while ago, and he said that doesn't really matter. He said what matters is, and he didn't say who the teams would be, but he says what matters is Patrick Cantlay playing with Xander Schauffele or Sam Burns playing with Scotty Scheffler, is how this player is going to play with another on that golf course. But he did say that the golf course they're playing was a factor in determining who the players would be, and that Marco Simone does have some Le Golf de National vibes. So I wouldn't be so surprised if you felt some similarities when we get over there.
Did you were you in Paris for that?
I was not, no.
Okay. Well, we'll let you out of here. Before we go, though, I got to have a little bit of college football prediction.
Let's
Let's
go.
talk about the dogs. You know, we got to start with the dogs. I mean, Carson Beck, obviously, he's already gotten some embarrassment out of the way, at least online, with that weird Snapchat screenshot that went around about that. Anyway, you didn't see that?
I did see it. No, I saw it. I'm just shaking my head at it.
So, hopefully nothing as embarrassing as that happens on the field. But what are your thoughts about the dogs as possible three-peat champs here?
I did the spring game, and Carson Beck has to be the quarterback. I mean, he looks the part. Last year, I got the great privilege of doing a couple lopsided Georgia games and saw a lot of Carson Beck on the field. Georgia would have played for the national championship had Carson Beck been their quarterback. And I don't want to take anything away from Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is a legendary dog, and he's already doing more in the NFL than anyone thought he would do, making the Los Angeles Rams. But Carson Beck looks the part. He's not going to run around like Stetson Bennett's going to run around, but all the rest of those guys are projects, one of which is really fast but can't see over the defense. The other guy can't read a defense. To me, Beck has to be the guy. The big question that I have about Georgia this year, I think they have just as much talent around their quarterback as they have had in recent years. The big question I have is all the noise of the offseason and some of the distractions and some of the mistakes and the fact that they play such a weak schedule, which is not their fault. Oklahoma was supposed to be on this schedule.
Yeah,
such a weak schedule.
The fact that you put all that together is Georgia. I know Kirby Smart is going to talk about how hungry we are. We're a bunch of hungry dogs, and we're going to be the hunter. If you haven't been in any example like that until you get to the SEC championship and then to the playoffs, is that going to rear its ugly head? That's the biggest question. I think it's so hard to go through for a three-peat. Alabama, 10 years ago, it's hard to believe it was 10 years ago, but the kick six that season, Alabama absolutely was one of the 2-3 best teams in college football that year. And they didn't go through an adverse situation until they played Auburn. And the fourth quarter got away from them and they blew the game. And the kick six happened and they didn't get to the playoffs. Although there weren't playoffs, it was just a 2-team playoff then. But they would have certainly made a 4-team playoff. I think that Georgia could be in a similar position, that once they get to the SEC championship game and or to the semifinals, something like Ohio State last year could happen, and this time they might be on the wrong end of it. That is what concerns me. I do think you need to be battle-tested at some point during the season, and you need to go through some adversity, and that's the thing that worries me. They're absolutely one of the 2-3 best teams in college football again and have every chance to win the national championship. I just wonder those lack of competitive games, environments, with a bunch of guys that have already won national championships, if that's going to hurt them at some point in December.
Well, we know we'll see what happens. You know, I think my favorite game this weekend, though, is the North Carolina South Carolina game.
Oh, yeah.
That is the one I'm looking forward to. I know we got LSU and Florida State, but that's the one that I think is the sneaky
Myers Park High School, Charlotte, North Carolina's Drake May, baby.
Yeah.
Going up against my guy Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks. That'll be a great one.
Yeah.
Taylor, we appreciate you taking some time. Are you going to Rome?
I am. Yep. I'll be there.
Can't wait. We'll be checking you out on SiriusXM. Appreciate the time. Wish you a safe flight. Thanks for coming on the Tour Junkies show on the Better Sports Network, bud.
Thank you, boys. This was fun. Let's do it again.
All right,
Thank you, Taylor.
We'll hold you to it. See you. Taylor Zarzour, everybody. That was good stuff. Stay right here. We're going to wrap this thing up with maybe some final Ryder Cup thoughts and, maybe some more college football. Who knows? Tour Junkies Golf Show coming back on the Better Sports Network.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Now back to Tour Junkies.
Damn it! Hit one good fucking iron shot.
I don't think you like that one.
On Better Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. Big shout out. Thank you to our friend Taylor Zarzour. Just talked to him about all this Ryder Cup stuff, some college football chatter. Pat, we're going to be covering the Ryder Cup some more here in the next coming weeks, but we'll talk about the schedule here in a second. Any other thoughts for now on the Ryder Cup team, the selections, Captain Zach Johnson, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good discussion about the fact that this European European team is certainly better than it may look on paper. But I still think the USA is going to take it. I think they are. I think they're finally going to win and win over in Europe, which would be the first time in 30 years that we will have seen that happen. But I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be exciting to watch. I feel good about the team, the way it ended up. Sam Burns may be the only question mark for me, but other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing what we get here.
I mean, I got to say, I think we're used to saying that. I think you said it that way because we're used to saying that the European team doesn't look like the better team on paper. I don't think we can say that this year. Like, they just, on paper, it is so damn close to me especially when you look at the top 8 to 10 players. I mean, they are just full of really good players. There's not a lot of, and I think they're in a sweet spot. There's not a whole lot of old farts that I think are going to make this team. Not a lot of like Rose, Sergio, Stinson like we've had years in the past, Wes Woods, or even Paul Casey to an extent, right? Like, I think Rose is going to be on the team. Lowry's probably going to make the team. He's not necessarily an old fart, right? I mean, hell, Rory might be considered an old fart if that's the case, but they also don't have a ton of like first timers. I mean, Sepp's going to be a first timer. Probably some other of these last few spots are going to be there. It just feels like they have a good mix of experience. There's not a ton of just old dogs in there that they're trying to, squeeze a little bit of life out of it here at the end. And I think as you look down the U.S. team, there's just some question marks, like Scotty's putter, Wyndham Clark, first time team situation. Was he, didn't play great in the playoffs? Did he just pop for a couple months in the summer and everything lined up? Brian Harman, like a lot of question marks for Brian Harman. I mean, he's a Georgia Bulldog. We know he can get up for it. We know he boat raced everybody at the Open. But how's he going to do in this format on this stage with his skill set? Patrick Cantlay and Xander, the two disgusting brothers, they've done fine in team events, but sometimes I question their overall just alpha-ness, I guess. I think Max Homa is a stud. I think he'll be a star. Brooks is obviously a star. I love Jordan Spieth for these events. He's got to be on the team, but I mean, also question marks with his play, right? Morikawa's kind of turned it up lately, but he had kind of a rough middle of the season, and Burns is iffy, right? Fowler's probably good, but I just think even on paper, it's not as clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're being a little bit too hard on some of those guys, but that's okay. I mean, geez, it is Scotty Scheffler you just mentioned his putter when he just had one of the greatest ball striking and scoring averages.
But he won twice.
I don't care. He's still playing. He was number 7. The top 6 were Tiger.
I know.
So you're poking holes in a little bit. A little bit too much here on some of these guys, because you can poke holes in John Rahm, who hadn't played well at all. Taylor mentioned that earlier. So I mean, it's
you're right.
Plenty of these, across the board, which is probably why it's a little more even, and why it has evened out a little more over the last couple weeks. So
yeah. All right. Well, more to come on that. We'll probably have more guests, more discussion. Obviously, once the teams are finalized, and especially that week when matchups are kind of out and available, we'll talk about betting on those. We had a very successful Ryder Cup 2 years ago, betting Ryder Cup props and all that stuff. So we'll try to get some of that done here on the Better Sports Network as well. Looking ahead, though, the new PGA Tour season, guess what? Starts in like 2 weeks. So the Fortinet Championship in Napa, California is really what kicks everything off. Justin Thomas has committed to play in the Fortinet along with defending champion Max Homa. And I guess as you look ahead for this upcoming schedule, Pat, we've got the where are we? We've got the Fortinet, then we've got the Ryder Cup, basically 2 weeks after.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of regular tour events for the rest of 2023, then you got the Sanderson Farms, the Shriners, the Zozo, Worldwide Technology, Bermuda, RSM, and I guess if you want to call Tiger's event the Hero Challenge. So 8 events left in the fall that we'll cover, that you can bet on. That, listen, I mean, I know football season's going on, but there are definitely some winning opportunities at these events. And every year we hit winners in these fall swing events. And I think this year more than ever, because of how it's all going to be playing out with the FedEx Cup standings and a lot of the top players not playing in the fall at all, it will be less interesting maybe to handicap or less interesting to watch on TV, but we could see some really large outright winners for the first time in what feels like years.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you're going to see in this fall schedule without some of these guys, like the top guys on tour playing. Definitely could see some long shots. So I'm looking forward to that. And, I don't know, but we're not going to get too many of the Corn Ferry guys on this fall swing, are we? Like we're typically used to getting. They kind of graduate into the new season in the fall. I don't know if we're going to have much of that.
Because of the way that's working. We're in this. Everybody's got to remember we're in this like interim PGA Tour season year where these events are almost like standalone events because they count only the guys outside of the top 70 from the FedEx Cup standings. So Justin Thomas are going to be able to earn FedEx Cup standings points that will set them up for their status starting in January of 2023 when we go to a calendar year PGA Tour schedule for the first time in I think like a decade or so. But those guys, if those guys choose to play, like for example Max Homa, he's going to come back and play the Fortinet. He doesn't earn FedEx Cup points no matter what he does. He can earn money, but he's not going to earn FedEx Cup points for next season. He's already solidified within his top 70 ranking where he is, but guys outside of the top 70 can better position themselves going into January for the fall. The Korn Ferry Tour, we normally get 50 players, right? We get 25 from the season overall standings and 25 from the Korn Ferry Tour finals. And we've got this, new injection of players, and those are interesting. We're still going to see a handful of those, I think, maybe even a dozen or so at some point at some tournaments because of sponsors exemptions, because of whatever. But yeah, we're not going to have the regular Korn Ferry Tour injections. So, I mean, in some ways, you could argue maybe the field will be a little stronger in terms of depth because we won't have these rookie Korn Ferry Tour guys, because we'll have a lot of regular PGA Tour players, but you're not going to have the top end of the field like we're used to seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they kind of jostle for position going into next year.
All right, that's it for us. We'll be back next week. We'll come up with something fun to talk about next week. Maybe more Ryder Cup stuff, maybe some football stuff, and then a couple weeks from there, we'll have the Fortinet preview. So yeah, thanks to Taylor Zarzour, thanks to producer Tony. It's been a good show, fun show. U.S. Ryder Cup team's on notice. I'm telling you. Go bet that plus 150 if you haven't hit it yet, okay, on Europe. All right, that's it for us. Tour Junkies Golf Show here on the Better Sports Network. See ya! Oh!
Deutsch here, live at the Scott Fishbowl 13 New York City Draft at Tito Murphy's. The first round of the Shake Shack division is underway. If you could believe it, team number one, you're going to love this, Mike Lipchenko selects Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, Miami Dolphins in the 101. An unbelievable, surprising pick here in the 4th spot. From the game day, Scott the King Engel. How does he start his draft? Not with a Seattle Seahawk, but the Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen will lead Scott Engel's team. He's right here. King, what do you think about Josh Allen to start your team?
I didn't think he was actually going to fall to me. The Tua Tagovailoa pick was off the board. Mike said he was going to pivot, so it was just a matter of who's going to fall to me. I just always think about, okay, who's the top guy on my board, who's going to fall to me. But having Josh Allen at 4 proves that every draft has a different flow and you never know what's going to happen.
Bobby Cable's here. Tell us about the Scott Fishbowl charity personally touched your family.
So basically, when I joined the military, when you get called up, you don't necessarily get money right away. It takes 30 days for any money to hit your account. And what I'm telling you is that if it wasn't for people like Scott Fishbowl and Toys for Tots, my family wouldn't have had a Christmas. So stuff like this, I'll Hulk smash somebody for, because without it, my family would legitimately not have a Christmas because of it.
Scott Fishbowl at fancycares.org, of course, Break the Hole. Amazing job for everybody to come out here. And look what we've given ourselves here. A whole Saturday at a New York City bar to ourselves. No family, no job. Some of us are working. But really, fantasy football party here with the best people in New York City together. So congratulations to everybody.